Sanders aren't home, so I thought I'd come a little bit early for Christmas. Oh, what a marvelous tree they have set up. Right here. Unbelievable. They've got all the presents. I'll drop off some more tonight. Hey, what do we have right here? Oh, we have a note. It says, Santa, please read this for Micah and Jamie. Oh, and I guess they gave this cookie to me to eat. I'll eat it in a minute. As soon as I finish reading the Polar Express to the young boys. So I guess I'll just sit in this chair here. Read this for the boys. See what they have to say here. This is one of my favorite books. I remember when this young boy came to North Pole. It was great. But he lost his toy. Oh, don't want to give the story away. I think Santa might need his spectacles. Just a minute here. I'm starting to get a little bit forgetful in my old age. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound. The sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There's no Santa, my friend insisted. But I knew he was wrong. Oh, yes, he was. Late that night, I did hear sounds. Though not of ringing bells, from outside came the sound of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in the front of my house. Wow, what a train! It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars, took a large pocket watch from his vest and looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe, tiptoed downstairs out the door. All aboard! The conductor cried. I ran up to him. Well, he said, are you coming? Where? I asked. Why, to the North Pole, of course, was his answer. This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hands and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols, ate candies with nugget centers as white as snow. We drank hot chocolate as thick and as rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of town and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward, which is where I live. Soon there were more lights to be seen. We traveled to the cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed. White-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. Look at the wolves! Ha 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 ha! They're my friends. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if it would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks through valleys like cars on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed the barren ice of desert, the great polar ice caps. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean. Liners sailing on a frozen sea. There, said the conductor, is the North Pole. That's where I live. The North Pole, it was a huge city standing alone on the top of the world, filled with factories everywhere. Christmas toy was made. We first saw no elves. They gathered at the center of the city. The conductor told us that is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Oh, I love giving that first gift. Who receives the first gift, we all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look, shouted the children, the elves. Outside we saw hundreds of elves as our train grew closer to the center of the North Pole. We slowed to a crawl, so crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of the large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound as nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, elves moved apart and Santa appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointing to me, he said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. Boy, was he surprised. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas, young man?" I knew that I could have any gift I would imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was what inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug, told me the elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked the whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled above us once, then disappeared into the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose that bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood by my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled. He kept his hands around his mouth and said, "Merry Christmas!" The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket." Signed, Mr. C. I shook the bell and it made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bells, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. That is a marvelous story. I think I'm going to have to get moving on here. Lots of other houses to go to. I got to get out of here before the Sanders come home. Micah, Jamie, you be good boys. I'll be there tonight. Go to sleep. Sleep tight. Good night, all, and to all, Merry Christmas!